part of my way of indexing or finding the same way of gripping each time is, of course, through a consistent and repetitious method. But how do I do that? How do I develop it? Well, I actually use an idea from Kyudo, or Japanese archery. Now remember, in my other video, I talked about the Churchill shooting method of pointing a shotgun, lining it up so the alignment's good, and just swinging it, right? And focusing on the target. So when I shoot, if you take a look, what I like to do is, this is really what I'm doing here. And as I close my grip, if you take a look at my grip, I point my knuckle. So I actually point. So when I'm holding or gripping my bow, I'm almost doing that. What do you think lines up with that foreknuckle? I'll give you a sec. Well, you probably already know the answer. You've been shooting for any time at all. My arrow. I have that alignment where I'm pointing with that knuckle. If you look at any of my videos, if you get in there and take a look at what I'm doing, quite commonly, these last two fingers are doing nothing. The primary grip, I call it the collar hold, so people understand that they don't have to white knuckle that, right? Depending on the pivot point of my bow, this may change a little bit, right? And that pivot point, it's one of the reasons I love this high speed so much. It has a really nice mid-rip pistol grip on it. And the pivot point is just so center of that. It's incredible. Love it. Now, what I use with if you look at a Kyudo archer, if you look at that grip, they have a similar grip to that. It's a little more structured, of course, for that style of archery, and their follow through. So, of course, I don't have a Kyudo follow through where that bow is turning or dropping, but my follow through, I have probably, that is the number one emphasis when I'm taking someone through grip control and grip index. So what I like to do, I'll give you a really simple little drill you can do. The next time you shoot, I want you to think about pointing that knuckle. If you're shooting instinctive and you're having trouble throwing the occasional arrow, stop shooting for groups, by the way. Don't shoot for groups. Shoot one arrow at a time. This allows your brain to reset, right? And I call this the principle of one arrow at a time. Don't try to get that brain into going, oh, I've got another chance, getting another arrow. Oh, I got another chance, and getting another arrow, right? Okay? By the time you build up to the third arrow, how many people here have thrown the third arrow at that target? My hand's up. How come? Because at that point, you've got that group, and you're like, oh my God, I need that three. That's what everyone, says on social media you need to do. That's what everyone, all the top guys say, you got to have that tight group. Sure, if you're shooting a competition. Sure, if you're assessing, that type of, you want that type of group for target archery. I have nothing against it, but that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in making sure that one arrow, that one chance I get at that deer, moose, bear, turkey, pheasant, grouse, rabbit, javelina, mule deer, I could go on and on. It doesn't matter what it is going right where I'm looking each time. And it starts by developing a great grip index. So what I want you to do the next time you shoot is really simple. I want you to think about pointing the arm, your bow hold arm. Think about pointing it. I don't care if the elbow's bent slightly. I don't care if it's extended. Make sure you're not raising your shoulder up. Make sure it's, falling naturally. And all I want you to do is, when you come up to full draw and you release, when you release that arrow and the arrow hits the target, all I want you to do is give a little bit of a squeeze with that grip you've got. A little squeeze. Now, after the 3 or 4 arrows doing that, I want you to do the same thing before you draw. This is going to give you a very good idea of how hard you're gripping the bow prior to drawing and after you've released. Before and after. Now, this is important. Why am I doing this? You want to kind of get an idea, a bar, of how hard or how soft you're gripping. This is a really good indicator drill. Now this has, again, a lot to do with indexing or finding the same grip. Because when I give that little bit of a squeeze, and if I do it correctly, that bow stays very, very stable. If I squeeze really hard, you see how it torques. If I go the other way, it torques in. If I do it evenly with pressure and I'm pointing, as you can see here, it doesn't move at all. And I'm gripping, I'm squeezing that. Now it's going to flow a little bit, of course, but you get my drift. Little dad joke in there about drift. My point is, this will allow you to develop the kinesthetic perception that you need when you're holding your bow. When I get used to identifying with the beginning of my draw cycle, whatever draw cycle you use, whatever aiming method you use, and I get to identifying that index before I draw, and then I identify it after I've released, and I keep that bow up, and I work on my follow through, I'm a huge nut about people's follow through. Because again, with other than grip index, it's the #1 problem I see with people is dropping the bow. Huge. I see it more than people get all finicky about releasing and all that and how to anchor and everything. They get all fussy about that. Man, I've got my father-in-law who anchors back behind his ear. He's built like that, right? He's Norwegian. He's, background. He's a big guy. And that's how he draws and shoots real well out to 20 yards that way. I've seen people have a floating anchor. I've seen people anchor in front of their face, on their nose. I've seen people use their chest. I've seen people use different indicators that work for them. But if this is out of whack, if you can't index the same grip and hold and have a good follow through, you're going to have problems. And that's where I see most people structurally having problems. Okay. I hope that helps you out. Try it out. Let me know how it works for you. And thanks for all the feedback, by the way. I appreciate it. And keep the questions coming, and I'll keep giving you answers. Cheers.